What's going on, YouTube? It's your host, Rich GNT, and we're here to talk about what's going on in the UK. So I've been keeping up with this story for like a little bit because apparently Denmark had passed some really strict laws when it comes to illegal immigration, and it seems like the UK is kind of following suit because they're trying to have like this kind of fast track, version of it where it's like, hey, look, we're going to make sure that if you come here legally, we're going to find a way to get you out as fast as we can, along with some other policies that they're trying to set forth in place. So let's not waste any time. Let's jump right in.
Next, here in the UK, the government will announce plans to fast-track the deportation of illegal migrants as part of a sweeping reforms of the UK's asylum policy. It comes after the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, told the BBC that illegal immigration was tearing the country apart. Well, she made the comments as she shared further details of changes to the system. So, under the new proposal, asylum seekers will only be able to stay for 2.5 years before being reassessed, instead of the current 5. At the moment, after 5 years, people can apply for permanent residence, but the new plans will require them to wait 20 years before being allowed to do that. However, the government says there will be ways to apply to live here permanently earlier if people use safe and legal routes to arrive and if they're working and contributing to society. Also plans to overhaul how human rights legislation is applied in migration cases. Well, this comes as the latest figures on migrant crossings in small boats found that the nearly 600 people who arrived over the week to Saturday brought the total for the year to nearly 39,300. That's up by nearly a fifth on this time last year, but just behind the level we saw at this stage in 2022, which was the peak year so far. Now, Joe Bartk has more.
So help me understand something for people in the UK. Why isn't your Navy or I guess your version of the Coast Guard doing something about it? Because it's not to say they're crossing over and you don't see them. They're right there in the water. Like you can see the boat. You can stop that. Why don't I don't know. Maybe there's something that I don't know about. Maybe there's certain procedures that to go by, but just don't let them come or grab their boat, give them some food and water, send them back on their way, or just say, hey, look, you can't pass, so you're going to figure it out. Like I don't know. Like maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm confused, but it's just a little odd.
A round of protests on the issue of immigration have been heard for months. Yesterday in Crowborough, East Sussex, people were opposing plans to house male asylum seekers at a nearby army camp. And the Home Secretary believes there are similar stories across the UK.
It is an issue that is dividing our country, and I see this polarisation all over the country, including in my own constituency. We have a system that is out of control, it's unfair, and is putting huge pressure on communities.
Today, the Home Secretary will announce she's overhauling human rights law to make deporting illegal migrants easier. She plans to change the law so those refused asylum can't make multiple appeals. And Shabana Mahmood will also threaten visa bans on 3 African countries, Namibia, Angola and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, unless they start accepting the return of thousands of their criminals and illegal immigrants. The Home Office has for decades been seen as a political poison chalice, full of pitfalls and dangers. Shabana Mahmood's team hope this plan, which they argue is comprehensive and common sense, will avoid all of those. But there are already sceptics in the Labour Party. Folkestone MP Tony Vaughan has tweeted, "The Prime Minister said in September that we are at a fork in the road. These asylum proposals suggest we have taken the wrong turning. The idea that recognised refugees need to be deported is wrong. We absolutely need immigration controls, and where those controls decide to grant asylum, we should welcome and integrate, not create perpetual limbo and alienation."
I can 100% agree with that. The issue is that there is a question whether or not these are all asylum seekers, because just like what we saw in that little boat, right? I'll go back to it. Not saying all of them were men, but it looked like a great deal of them were men. Like it didn't look like there was a whole lot of kids. It looked like most of them were men. So it's like, okay. So I could get behind that, but one, people need to figure out what's going on. Like, why is there a whole bunch of men? Make sure that they're actually asylum seekers and not just people that are just trying to do whatever they want to do in someone else's country. And then not only they have like proper background checks, you know what I'm saying? Like there's nothing wrong with that. I do find it interesting because just like what we saw, it's like they stand guard there and they kind of just like hang out there for however long or whatever. I'm not too sure. Not only that, right? Because America's been going through the same thing where the countries where the people are originally from, they say, hey, we're not taking them back. And it's like, is there no other way to circumvent that? Just be like, okay, hey, boom, leave them right there at the coast and like, take them. You know what I'm saying? Because isn't that kind of crazy? Like, your people are coming over here and we know they're your people and you're like, we don't want them. It's like, what the fuck? We don't want them either. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just odd. It's odd. It kind of leads me to believe, are you really seeking asylum? Because the country that you're trying to run away from doesn't want you. So, I don't know. Just how I'm thinking.
And where those controls decide to grant asylum, we should welcome and integrate, not create perpetual limbo and alienation.
This won't necessarily be the silver bullet, and I think the government recognises that. It's taking a quite broad approach. It's also focusing on enforcement, focusing on return deals. This is unlikely to be on its own a silver bullet that reduces small boat arrivals substantially. But is it a part of a broader strategy? Yes. Will people know about these kinds of restrictions such that it will deter them in large numbers? We'll just have to wait and see.
They'll know. One thing I can tell you is that when people come here, whether it's legally or illegally, they have technology, right? How do you think some of these people know to go to certain states and certain cities? Because they talk with each other. When a few of them get sent back home or better yet get rejected, say, hey, no, that's not what's going to happen. They're going to communicate with each other to let them know, oh, no, it's not going to work. We can't go there. Why do you think they know to go to the UK? They're talking with each other. Also, to kind of hamper on the point we said, you know, we should try to work on integrating these people. You can't force integration. The people themselves on both sides have to work on that together. And seemingly that's not working. So you could try to work on integration as much as you want to. It's not something that you could force. It has to happen naturally.
As the Home Secretary prepares to sell her plans to Parliament, both the Conservatives and Reform UK have expressed doubts as to whether these proposals will ever get through the Commons. Joe Pike, BBC News, Westminster.
And we go live to Westminster now. Our chief political correspondent, Henry Zeffman, is standing by. Hi, Henry. We're going to hear more details in Parliament later. What do you make of what we've heard so far?
Well, it is undeniably a very extensive package. In the government's eyes, the most extensive reforms to the asylum system in the UK for decades. And I think the fact that there's such an extensive package with so many different measures in it means there's going to be a lot for MPs to digest, and critically, a lot that Labour MPs from Shabana Mahmood's own side could potentially object to, as you were hearing from Joe there. I think important to stress that the unease, and I don't put it more strongly than that, but the unease with these plans within the Labour Party is not confined to the left of the Labour Party, not confined to the wing of the Labour Party, which pretty much objects to the direction of travel on every policy area from this government. There are people who might more typically ally themselves with Keir Starmer or with Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, who are a bit unsure about these plans, do wonder whether they go too far. So I think Shabana Mahmood's task in the House of Commons later today isn't just to put a parliamentary flavour on what we've seen her announce over the last few days. It is also to win over some wavering Labour MPs.
Dog, you see that? That's just crazy. They just all just hanging out on a boat like that. Like, first of all, brave as fuck, because I will never do some shit like that. I ain't gonna front. I ain't built like that. I don't float very well. Humor me for a second, right? If we were to look, for the most part, it's just a whole bunch of men. And just like what I did in my last video talking about how they wanted to put 300 asylum seekers on an army base. Yeah, people are not going for that. People are not going for that. To comment on what they're trying to do and how they're trying to make implementations and changes, very interesting. Very interesting. The 20-year part is the one that throws me off the most, and that's for asylum seekers, you know, unless I'm misconstruing something, but that's for asylum seekers, not people that immigrate legally and everything like that. So 20 years is crazy. I mean, for me personally, if you want to go with like a high number for years, 10 maybe 8. 8 is a solid one. 8 is a solid one. That one will make more sense. You know, make sure they have some real skin in the game. And also, if they're not, I guess, considered citizens for those 20 years, right? What happens when it comes to work? Can they work? Because remember, I talked about in the previous video, they're trying to pass like digital IDs to make it so that if you're not a citizen of the UK, then you can't work in their country. That's what they're trying to pass. Whether or not it's going to work, I don't know. But with stuff like that set in place, how is that going to work with them being there for 20 years? Like, are they going to have certain jobs that they could work? Are they going to be able to work as much as they want to? Is there going to be certain limitations? That's what things get kind of weird and scary, because it's like, okay, now you're having a whole group of people that for the next 20 or so years can't provide for themselves and or are regulated to doing only certain types of work. It gets kind of weird when you get to that point. This is what happens when you let things get to such an extent to where your people are not happy and your government is not happy because the people are not happy, and then you're fucking up the money. That's what happens, because the 20 years is what's throwing me. The 20 years is what's throwing me. Everything else doesn't sound too bad. Like I said before, if they could explain to me why is it that they can't just send them back or something, I don't know. Something it has to make sense to me, because if I saw this in my waters, I'd be like, don't pass that point. You can't come. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that you gotta do some Poland shit. If you don't know what Poland does to its illegal citizens or illegal immigrants, aliens, whatever you want to call them, you should look it up. It's crazy work. Like, they don't play. Yeah, I mean, there has to be something else, because that's just insane. It's crazy. God forbid, how many people do they lose? That's pretty full. How long does it take them to do that? It showed like parts in Africa, so I guess that's where they're coming from. So they trekked that. Oof, wow, that's crazy work. I don't know anything about that.
What about any assessments about how effective these measures will or won't be?
Well, it's important to say that the measures are not going to be retrospective, so they won't affect the people who are already here under the existing system. And obviously, much of the frustration that we've seen on the streets as well as in our politics over the past year or two at illegal immigration as it stands is by definition about the situation as it stands. So I think, Shabana Mahmood is going to have to find a way to make an argument about why that is the case for those to her right. For those to her left, the argument that she will make, I think, is that the effectiveness that she hopes these measures will have is not just an end in and of itself, but is also in order to rebuild public confidence in the asylum system. I'm told the argument that she's been making privately to Labour MPs, and we may well hear her make in public in the House of Commons later today, is that in order to have the safe and legal routes for asylum seekers, which so many in the Labour Party and other political parties generally on the left of politics prize, you have to have public confidence in the asylum system, and she believes these measures are necessary to attain that.
Well, that's what she thinks. I mean, like I said before, I'm a stranger to you guys' politics. I'm starting to pick up on a few things. Seemingly it's relatively the same shit, but yeah, if she thinks this is gonna work. For me, like I said, that 20-year one right there, that's a little odd. Everything else seemingly makes sense, and I don't know, do something about people coming through your waters or something like that. I guess that will border on kind of like human rights type, violations or whatnot, if they was to do something like put like barriers or whatnot, because I'm gonna keep up with this. 'Cause I've been keeping up with this for like a little bit, trying to see if anything new is going on. Nothing too much. So yeah, I'm gonna keep my ear to the ground. Well, you guys, you already know the drill. That's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like. Comment down below, tell me your thoughts. Do you think this is an effective plan? And if it is an effective plan, when do you see it actually yielding some good results? Because I don't know, this one's a little shaky to me. And if you don't think it's a good plan, tell me why you don't think it's a good plan. What do you think can be done instead? Let me know down in the comments below. That's it for now. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.